let me be clear. Any lies, any misinformation, you know, we have stood by and we have allowed it. That's fine. Now is a disaster. The consequences of misleading people in a disaster is a disaster in itself.
All right, we need to go to Harry, but we are out by 2, eh? And it's 8:30. We need to do this by 8:30. Come on. We can do it, man. 8:30. 2 persons jump on and Zelle $20 to car. Zelle $20 to 954-635-8732. $20 each. Come on. It's not even a dragon. Yeah, that's just 2 Pepsi. Come on. Not for Pepsi, but to Politics Plus. 954-635-8732. Can we get 2 persons from our listeners to just do that for us quickly? So that we can go to Harry at 8:30. So we go to Harry at 8:30, all right?
And if you are truly a part of the government, then you must act like a part of the government and be responsible in your pronouncement. You got the challenge, because in one voice you say you want it, and then in another voice you say you don't want it, you just want it done. And Madam Speaker, we as the government who have the responsibility, we already knew that this moment would come. And therefore, Madam Speaker, that is why we have always emphasized that we must stand up the government,
Speaker,
make the government
we will
strong,
now have
including the members of the opposition, so that we can give the long enduring service to those Jamaicans who are suffering. That is what we have done. So, Madam Speaker, the idea that somehow the relief effort has been partisan, unfairly distributed, the main proponent being my sister and neighbor from St. Andrews South West.
Again, the Prime Minister is misleading the House by saying, and besmirching, yes, my character, by saying that I am the main proponent. Obviously, he's not on social media. He's not reading what others are saying and writing. I am only bold enough to say it to your face.
Madam Speaker, I am happy that the member who says that she is not the main proponent, who asked the same question last week and asked it this week, and is bold enough to state, I am happy that she has raised the issue, because, Madam Speaker, as I travel through the country, supporters of the Jamaica Labour Party have come to me complaining that the PNP MPs who have gotten substantial relief aid have not been distributing it to them. And I want to put it on record, Madam Speaker, that when they have come to me, I have said to them, in the interest of unity and peace in this country, that we wouldn't raise it or complain about it. But there is obviously, Madam Speaker, an effort to destroy the goodwill and to falsely accuse the government in a very malicious way. And we have, Madam Speaker, made every attempt to be fair in how we have distributed the public's resources, not our resources, the public resources. And to answer the member, I have given a directive to the Minister of Labour, to the Minister of Local Government, and to ADPEM that they must release all public aid that has been given to every member of parliament in this country.
Harry. Hi, Harry. How are you?
I'm here, neighbor. Night, everybody. I'm not
By
too
the way-
bad in a neighbor.
Yes. By the way, thank you, listeners, for responding to the call. Thank you so much. I got my cue to go ahead, so I'm happy to hear that we can go until 9. Great, fantastic. Just wanted our listeners to know that if we are to go beyond 9 o'clock, that we have to come back to this. That's how it works, and I don't know any other way. First of all, Harry, did you listen to the finance minister today?
I got a short part of it, neighbor. Work was a little hectic today. Had a few meetings as well.
All right. Let's raise with you, Harry. The opposition leaders call for sobriety. The opposition leader is actually saying that this is not something that we should necessarily celebrate. Do you agree that this is not a moment for celebration in Jamaica? The acquisition, the fact that the multilaterals have decided to lend us this money to reconstruct our country. The general consensus coming out of the opposition today is no applause. Do you agree with that?
I can understand why the opposition would phrase it that way, neighbor. And I pivot there. But personally, it is something historic for us, right? Not just the world coming together to help us, but they have also, with great expertise, put up entire package together, right? Showing their backing of the Jamaican people, because in essence, that's what it is. The trust in Jamaican people to get up and do it again in terms of at least achieving the projected 4% growth over a period of time. Never before we've ever garnered such magnitude when it comes on to help, right? With very little strings attached. We will further understand any conditionalities or any things that we may have to guarantee when it comes on to growth or so on. But it has never been done, neighbor. I have a question for the opposition, though, on the same matter, because if it's not something to celebrate that we have somewhere to go, I want to have an understanding as to, if not that money, where else?
What are the options available, Harry? What are the other options available to the government if it is not to borrow the money?
I'd like to ask Marky G as well. And if it's not something to celebrate the neighbor, why would he also have asked for 50 million? I mean, this is the confidence that he could get 50 million for his member of parliaments, right? Which I know he silently is enjoying. But he have to, technically have to come off, neighbor, as I think in Jamaican terms, as a sourpuss, right? Because he can't come out.
Are you saying to me that the
applaud.
opposition is incapable of celebrating a national achievement? Because I'm asking you, sir. You are a bit of a, you know more about these things than I do. What were the options available to the government?
Neighbor, I dug a little trying to find what alternatives there are, and I'm still stuck at the question. What alternatives that would benefit the people and add value coming out of this recovery?
Electorals to give us this money, Harry, $0.7 billion. Could we in all likelihood? So the argument is that because of industrialization and because of these large companies have destroyed whatever they have in the environment, that they should be giving the money to us. Is that a good argument to make?
Yeah, but in essence, yes, because we haven't produced anything close enough for the damages that the larger countries have, right? And they also do have the responsibility. In the corporate aspect, we have something called your corporate responsibility neighbor, and on the global scale, it is no different, right? While
Harry, there was an argument in Jamaica for reparations, right? That didn't go anywhere. As a matter of fact, the leader of the opposition in Britain, Kemi Badenoch, is saying will not happen. We have to be realistic, Harry. Are we going to sit down and go with cap in hand to beg while our people suffer?
That is impractical in this day and age, neighbor. I mean, that is something they would have done in the past, and we've seen where we are now, fiscally as well. So it shows that is an old model. It's archaic, neighbor, and it doesn't work, right? Definitely wouldn't work, no. But the thing with the opposition is, because in his speech as well, neighbor, he did mention that he believes in the Jamaican people and the economy. So I want to know specifically if he believes so much that we're resilient, neighbor, all right? Then why is this package of $6.7 billion such a devastating thing to him? Because remember, on one hand, and I mentioned it, we will get some backhanded compliments, neighbor, and we're seeing it in his speech. And today was no different. So on one hand, he's saying, well, we're not against it. But if you're not against it and you're finding everything wrong with it, then you aren't with it. So where are you?
Yeah. Am I not correct, Harry, by suggesting that this is more than a loan for Jamaica? Because if it is for reconstruction and rebuilding, then it is going to stimulate the economy, produce jobs, create economic growth. Isn't there that potential?
Of course, neighbor, because remember, this money, it's split up in several different ways, and it's set to target specific sectors and areas in our budget and in our economy, neighbor. So it's not money that's just broad brushing everything. It is very, very strategic. There will be funding. I think there's 3 areas where $1 billion is allocated each. I don't remember them right now off the top of my head, but the funds have.
We have lost Harry. Good evening to you, Scratchy.
Good evening, neighbor. Good evening, viewers.
Scratchy, scratch off this for me. The opposition leader again, Scratchy, in Parliament today is suggesting that the government should consider including the opposition in NARA, because the opposition represents 400,000 people who voted for him. Is that a good way to approach it, Scratchy? Is that a good way to even address the Prime Minister in Parliament, to say you are representing for? And is that not nonsense, Scratchy? Is the opposition representing only those people?
Totally nonsense at the highest level, neighbor. No office that is constitutional in Jamaica that's formed under the Constitution, neighbor, it can be responsible to only a certain aspect of the population.
But why does he keep saying it?
And the opposition leader, neighbor, we see his style, neighbor. This is a guy, neighbor, who is totally different, totally unorthodox, a totally different type of politician, neighbor. Definitely not a politician in my eyes, not a statesman at higher level either. Definitely not a statesman. So I mean, I guess, neighbor, someone who's very power hungry, who just want to say that he has become a whole title of being Prime Minister of Jamaica. And he definitely will not hold that title, neighbor. And I think it's time for him to just understand that. I know that he would never be the Prime Minister, Mark Golding. Just stop this foolish about representing 400,000 people. You cannot go in the Parliament as the leader of the opposition and say that you're representing 400,000 people, sir. That is total nonsense. Yes. And I hope Jamaicans are listening and see this type of thing. And those in news media and civil society calling out the opposition leader and this leader, neighbor. And it is just so shocking to know that the civil society especially are so silent and these type of partisan in our Parliament. Neighbor, the Parliament is a place where you cannot be partisan. You cannot be political in the Parliament. When you go to the Parliament, you're representing your constituency and Jamaica on a broader level. No specific person, because if Mark Golding should oppose a certain law, he cannot oppose that law, neighbor, because it only affects his constituency. It might be a wider effect as to why you oppose this law, sir. So Mark Jefferson Golding need to cut his crap, neighbor, and learn and go back and study what is opposition leader.
Yes. Scratchy, your thoughts on the opposition's general theme today was we should not be applauding this $6.7 billion for reconstruction. How do you see that Scratchy?
Again, neighbor, I think the opposition leader just need to come out and be frank, neighbor, and say that, Mr. Prime Minister, based on how you guys have run this government over the last 10 years, we have gotten so used to not borrowing any form of money that you buy that the country borrowing money now it's come as total surprise to the opposition, because they're used to, neighbor, of us not borrowing any money. But again, neighbor, to answer your question, total madness from the opposition leader again, neighbor. In the situation that we are currently in, neighbor, a loan of this magnitude, neighbor, is definitely what we need to go forward. Definitely rebuilding faster. And the loan, neighbor, despite whatever the loan is, say, yeah, we know that the loan is earmarked for certain things. But when this loan reaches Jamaica, neighbor, yes, it has some little stipulations as to what it is go for. It is the government now, neighbor, who's going to, a lot of these loans will be used for grants, loans. So it's not just to rebuild and reconstruct, neighbor, it's also for sectors who have suffered. The agriculture sector, the tourism sector. These are funds that we need, neighbor, because if we don't get this fund in neighbor, Jamaica is going to be in a very sad place in years to come. And there's a lot of infrastructure project going on right now that the Prime Minister don't intend to stop. So the Prime Minister wants to know that our budget can still fund what we are doing. Plus, we have a loan of over 1.6 or 1.7 billion US dollars that we can inject in the economy. That is magnificent, neighbor. That is what they call surplus in the economy. Surplus, I can tell you, that's a surplus, or a stimulus, and that's what the country need right now, neighbor. We need stimulus, we need flow of cash. The flow of cash is going to lead to more employment, either on a short-term or long-term basis, because reconstruction have to be done, and we're going to need employment, persons are going to be employed. So the opposition leader, neighbor, just need to cut his crap, neighbor, and just stop trying to be politics. You want the government to move fast, but at the same speed you're saying that we must take the money that we're going to get to propel us to move fast. They need to come straight and not answer what you're really saying, because you're confusing us right now, Mr. Opposition Leader.
Yeah. Scratchy, the expectation, I was expecting today, when the opposition leader rose to speak, that he would commend the government's effort at so quickly. Scratchy, this country, Scratchy, is not understanding what is happening, enough, Scratchy. The fact of the matter, Scratchy, is that 20 years ago, as the Prime Minister suggested, if we had this magnitude of a hurricane, we couldn't get the money to borrow like this,
Yeah, but no way, neighbor, we could get this money to borrow. Not even 10, 15 years ago, neighbor, we couldn't get this money to borrow, neighbor, because our economy was never in the shape that it is in right now. Neighbor, I tell you earlier, neighbor, that the economy, because a lot of these financial economists, or whoever they call themselves, off guard as well. They weren't aware of how strong this economy was, neighbor. They had the economy at a certain level that they were just seen from the outside level. But now with Hurricane Melissa, neighbor, they saw how strong the economy is. They see it for themselves now. They get a better understanding and say, yes, the Wellness administration has been doing wonderful, because look at the strength of the Jamaica economy. Look how multilateral agencies, financial agencies worldwide have come to the aid of Jamaica without Jamaica going to with a sauce and a cup begging. These guys come to us because of our economies. These guys come to us because of the Prime Minister that we have, and his leadership quality and his style and always admired overseas. So we have to understand, neighbor, we have to applaud the government by extension, neighbor, and know that this is no easy feat. To pull on this magnitude of cash, neighbor, it's no easy feat. When you see more than one multilateral agency, neighbor, can decide that, hey, we're going to come together and we're going to do this. And when you look at the short span of time that it is done in, neighbor, you show all these countries value Jamaica, all these multi-agencies value Jamaica, neighbor, because they met. And these things are not easy to sign off, neighbor. You know that. These things are not easy to sign off on 1.6 billion US dollar. This is not a one-man talk or a two-man talk. These things have to go in a board meet and all type of thing, neighbor. So we must have to understand, neighbor, that we have to applaud the government, neighbor. Wonderful feat, neighbor. I don't have an issue with it, neighbor. And the opposition leader just need to come out and be straight and say, yes, based on how the country was going on, how the Prime Minister was been doing all along, you get used to us not borrowing any money. But you have to understand in the context of what we are going through right now, Mr. Mark Golding, to propel and bring back these people's life back and forth, we have to take this loan because we value the people in life. As much as we value the economy, neighbor, we also value these people's life. Because these people are the driving force of the economy, neighbor. When you look at St. Elizabeth, you look at St. James, the tourism and the agriculture, they're the driving force of the economy, this neighbor. And we must do anything it takes to make sure so we bring back these two sectors back and forth as fast as possible. And if the government taking that loan as a help with the advancement of that, I see no issue with that as a Jamaican neighbor.
Well, Scratchy, the opposition today say no applause for this. and I think that was quite disappointing. Let me go back to Harry. Welcome back, Harry.
Yes, neighbor.
So Harry, you were telling us if there were options available to the government and what those options were, and you are saying that you have not seen any option the government has, except going to the multilaterals to get money. The other option would be going to the private market, right?
Right, which in this moment, neighbor, can be very costly.
I see an option, neighbor. I see other options.
Tell me.
I see other options, neighbor.
Tell us.
No more buying of police cars. Reversing all of this salary increase that was given to public sector workers. Cutting part programs, cutting the whole part program and all of the social programs. Scrap all the major infrastructure road projects that are going on. And that will be total madness. This is our only option, neighbor.
Yeah, okay. That's brilliant. That's brilliant strategy. Those are the only options you have, Harry.
Well, Scratch is selling Jamaica for scrap parts.
Those are the only options available.
But and the thing with it in a neighbor, right? We have to look at the magnitude of these institutions. A World Bank group, neighbor, right? That's one. The IDB. These are the highest level of institutions you can go to, neighbor. These are beyond reputable. These are the institutions that help set the world standards, neighbor. So anything below this would be subpar. And we want to be want to go into the first world aspect. These are the areas that we have to go into. We have no choice in that area. But the good thing about it is that we didn't go into this, neighbor, empty-handed. We didn't go in there without any idea as to what we want. We went there. We actually put a plan forward, a system and a structure which was able to garner the level of respect, our credibility, also to show how responsible we've been. And one of the most important things, neighbor, to show that these persons who are necessarily investing in us, to ensure to them that we'll be equitable for our people, they will be great, they have one of the highest level of accountability, and also they can have the vote of confidence that everything system that have been put in place are what speaks to all those things I've just outlined. Because if we didn't have it, G20 visit would have been a failure. Right? Any other post funded, these are what the outputs will be. In 2012, we're just going there a bigger thing. And we all know the conditionalities that we faced. So this time around, it's totally different, neighbor. And we have to commend that firstly, and also then show our great appreciation for the vote of thanks, the vote of confidence the rest of the world have in us, neighbor, and in this administration. And to show it as well, this is being given over a 3-year period. So the level that they believe in this administration.
Sorry. When you say 3 years, in other words, the drawdown is over 3 years.
Right.
As the government don't need all of that money up front.
No.
Right?
No, which is what I would have also explained previously, in previous lives as well. No, this is something that will be done in tranches, basically, or in segments, right? Again, we've seen where the private sector and also Keith Duncan came out, who is championing the partnership between government and private sector as to what to do and how they're going to do it. And he himself, which have no reason to lie, because he's a very patriotic man, right? He's Jamaica first, if anybody knows him, and he outlined it. Even with this package coming to our doorstep, neighbor, that doesn't mean we even have to activate any of it until next year, May, June, July, because we also have money for ourselves, neighbor, that are actually being used currently to help stimulate the economy for where it is now. And that is something the opposition doesn't want to highlight. He wants to paint the picture, neighbor, to say we're getting the 6.7 billion in one go, which means the payment that you have to make is going to be significant. But when we look at it, even using common sense, neighbor, we know it's going to be over a period of time, and it's not a must that we're even going to use that 6.7 billion in its entirety.
Okay, so the Prime Minister made a point today that because there is a difference between GDP, debt to GDP, and GDP. And what the Prime Minister was saying, Harry, was that the $6.7 billion could be used to expand the GDP. In other words, expand the country's the value of the country.
Value of, right?
Is that a good point?
It is, neighbor, right?
When you invest this amount of money in an economy, Harry, it is bound to broaden the capacity of the country and improve the country's value.
Right.
And then GDP.
Yes, neighbor. Because also what it does, it gives us an additional layer of strength and working with more resources, which means we can also fast track things a little better. So if we had, let's say, a lesser amount, right? It means now we may be in a deficit. We may not if we see something that we can create, like another project or another strategy to help speed up something in the parameters that are outlined. Without that, it means we would have now slowed down, because really and truly, neighbor, the fact that it's predicted for 2027 for us to have a bounce back, right? 2027, neighbor, that's 24 months away, right? After losing 41% of our economy. I don't know no other small member state in a neighbor or developing state. I don't know any country at that is outlined for before. I could be wrong. Somebody could bring it to the table, but I don't know no country. Almost 50% of your economy is down and out. And you're going to say the level of confidence we have in you, both in terms of the BOJ and World Bank also looking for us to bounce back by 2027. So you lose half of everything. And they're saying you're so resilient and strong that by 2 years' time, you can bounce back.
Amazing. Scratchy?
Yes, neighbor.
The Prime Minister is buoying in confidence, Scratchy. What's been happening to Holness?
Neighbor, I said this earlier before on previous programs, neighbor, that when I look at the Prime Minister, neighbor, I didn't see someone who looked timid, who looked concerned, or looked worried. Yes, I saw sympathy in his face towards the disaster and the persons who are in the disaster here, yes. But in terms of our ability, neighbor, to recover, neighbor, I didn't see any form of worrying on the Prime Minister's face. He looked confident toward the whole thing, neighbor. He went over now, he went to G20, he did what he was supposed to do, made his presentation, came back. Week after, we hear what is going to happen down there in Jamaica. The Prime Minister, neighbor, when persons are talking about they don't see the Prime Minister giving out any packages, the Prime Minister is in his office, neighbor, on his phone, making all of these connections that we're see going on. These things don't do something by faith. These things are planned and properly carried out, neighbor, and that's what the opposition needs to understand. This is not the chaka-chaka government. This is a formality government, neighbor. The first everybody ever hear something like this, like my year government talk about data, we're collecting the data. Everybody knows, all right, the Prime Minister come with a new word now, the economy kill with one time, then come kill with data. Data is very important, neighbor. data is very important, and the gathering of data is what is going to help the government to make a smooth transition, to have a smooth process, and make people life can come back in a timely manner. Without the data, neighbor, it cannot be done. It cannot be done. However, organized government, we don't have the government to just normally make knee-jerk reaction, neighbor, and then 2 years after we say the money squandered, the money waste and overrun. This is not that type of government. And I think Jamaicans, neighbor, a lot of Jamaicans still don't realize or come to the realization that the politics has changed, the governance structure of Jamaica has changed. The governance structure of Jamaica, neighbor, is not the same like 20 years ago. And persons are still behind and fail to add up and realize what is going on in the country.
Yes.
This is why we have so many persons who are putting a projection towards the government, because remember, these persons are failing to tag along with the movement of the country. Jamaica advanced more than a lot of persons in the neighbor. The country is advancing at a rapid pace more than a lot of persons in the country. And that is concerning, neighbor. And it is so sad that these persons, neighbor, they just all they can see just orange and green. They can't just put orange and green aside and say, look at the reality of where Jamaica is compared to 20 years ago. How improved has my life been? Of course, my life has improved a lot. But these persons, neighbor, they only look on color because they're going to send the government now going with nothing. But 10 years ago, neighbor, then they have one room and they managed to put on 2 rooms within the 9 years here, neighbor. But then they accomplish that or push that towards the advancement and say the government make this can happen, you know. They don't do those things, neighbor. They don't do those things. This is not directly from a politician. Them get something. Them say government don't do nothing, neighbor. And it is so shocking that we have people in the country, neighbor. If a politician don't directly put something in your hand, government don't do nothing for you. Your ability to can build 2 rooms in a 9 years time, the government make your ability make you can do that. If you can put in an inside bathroom and move from the outside bathroom, the government make you can do that. Neighbor. And anybody can read 20 years ago, neighbor. A single room around Jamaica, especially the carpet area. Kids are sleeping right now. Kids have their own room. And the government make all of those things possible. So we have to give the government credit, not because the government can put 20,000 and don't mean the government not doing nothing. Everything, anything we have advanced in your life from 10 years ago compared to now is as a result of the policies and the program of the government and the good management of the economy by the government. If you're going to the ghetto right down here, you see sand everywhere, sand and gravel and black there, everybody gate, everybody a bill. But they're not say the government make them have the ability can build so. Then blame it and say government no do nothing because you don't get nothing free. You know, I'm learning on here, but other persons want to come and talk. I have continue.
No. I have one more question for you. Don't worry about it. Scratchy, the Prime Minister today said that he was going to release data about what MPs have gotten. And I see the opposition applaud it. Why would they applaud Scratchy? Because I don't think the Prime Minister is referring to his MPs.
What the opposition need to understand, neighbor, that there are 16 constituencies that are affected, neighbor. A majority of these constituencies are represented by the opposition. So whatever data is to be released, neighbor, the data is released, the Prime Minister now be politics or whatever, wherever the data fall when it released, neighbor. And I want to see that data as well, because the Prime Minister know that based on what the opposition members have been saying at press conferences about not receiving this and receiving that. The data is there. So data is going to be published and we're going to see who tell life and who's telling the truth.
Okay. All right. Welcome, Joshua.
Greetings, sir, and greetings to Harry, Scratchy, Miss Caroline, and all of your listeners and participants.
Here is where I want to start with you, Joshua. The distinction between the opposition representing 400,000 that vote for him. When the opposition leader says, I am representing these people, what do you understand him to mean?
And the quickest answer before expanding is partisan politics. So those who have voted for me, I am representing those. Those who have not voted for me, I couldn't care less about you, what happens.
But why an opposition leader would speak like that in the parliament, though? Because isn't there a difference between the opposition leader and the president of the People's National Party?
There is.
I heard the Prime Minister today saying that the opposition is a part of government. Is that true?
Yes, in terms of the governance system, and I've been trying to tell persons for a while, based on the Westminster's model that we have, as part of the governance structure they're a part of the government, but they are not, because they form the leadership cohort of the political directorate in the country.
I may be
So-
rushing you a bit, but the Prime Minister is having to explain that the executive power is not what he wants to sublet to the opposition. Is the opposition asking for executive power?
Well, I don't think that they're only asking. I think the opposition leader has deluded himself into thinking that he has executive power.
Because of the 400,000 people that vote for him.
Not just because of the four. That's a very strong portion of it. But I think it's a lack of acceptance that they have lost the election.
But why would he be thinking like this? This is not how the country runs. Your government for all Jamaica, your opposition for all Jamaica.
No.
Yeah?
Go ahead, sir.
Yeah, what I just want to understand, Joshua, why is Mr. Golding making this error?
Because he has a lack of understanding as to what is required. One, to be the leader of a party. You asked a critical question a while ago. Isn't there a distinction between the leader of opposition and the leader of the party? One is the party's representative, and one is the people's representative, in a political sense. But he's not the leader of the executive. And Mark Golding cannot seem to make a distinction between both. And he lacks basic understanding as to how the parliament runs. Yes, he has a little knowledge of law, but just to show you, because some of the questions that I hear Mark Golding asking, and those who follow him, those who are part of his executive, and I'm talking people like Nikisha Burrell et al., when you hear the questions that are asked, it shows, one, a basic lack of understanding as to how, as to what their responsibilities are, which means that they don't understand how they should function. And one of the things that we keep seeing, basic, is when the standing orders have to be read and interpreted by the Speaker of the House. Simple things such as those. And if you misunderstand those simple tenets, then you're going to misunderstand the rest, right? And it's sad, because how are you going to lead people and teach people if you yourself don't know?
Yeah, you know a little bit about the FinSAC era, Joshua, and what that cost the country. It's a research that I think we need to do in terms of the cost of that versus what Melissa is costing us. But the general theme coming out of Parliament today from the opposition is that we should not be celebrating this money that we have gotten to borrow. Do you agree that this is not something for Jamaica to celebrate, but as the opposition leader is suggesting, that we should be sober? Sobriety, he said. No celebration, sobriety.
All right. So you can. Why do we have to have or? Why is it that we can't have both? And in the opposition's rhetoric, it seems as if we can't have both of them at the same time. We can both celebrate and be sober at the same times. We can have a sober celebration as to what our achievements are, right? Now, you mentioned FinSAC and the loss.
By the way, Joshua, I know that you very well recall when Omar Davies used to get loans. How he would come to Parliament to celebrate. You remember, sir?
Definitely, sir. In fact, the PNP often, as part of their rhetoric and their propaganda machinery that they have ramped up even more, has spoken about the failings of the then government, right? And say that Portia Simpson Miller was able to get loan from the IMF in Washington when the JLP was unable to. This is one of the things that they celebrated most. Now, you asked also a while ago, in passing, about Melissa and FinSAC. It's just about the same loss of GDP, right? During Melissa, it's 41% of GDP which was lost, which is just about $8.8 billion, which is $1.4 trillion Jamaican, so it's anywhere between 8.8 and 10 billion, which would take you up to 1.6 trillion Jamaican dollars. During the FinSAC era, it was 40% of GDP which was lost. So Hurricane FinSAC, led by Mark Golding, took just about the same amount as Melissa took. And at that time, it was 300 plus million dollars. Yeah.
What an amazing comparison. So FinSA cost us 40% of our GDP?
Yes, sir.
He's right, neighbor. He's 100% right, neighbor. In today dollar exchange rate, neighbor, what it cost us 140 billion Jamaican dollars at the time, it will equivalent, neighbor, to about $1 trillion Jamaican dollars right now.
Yeah.
Or 5.8 billion US dollars right now.
And then Scratchy, to make it worse, you know, at one point, I think it was about 2001, the government funded bonds were 44% of our GDP.
$71.9 billion are to be exact of that government funded. That cost today 3.3 billion US dollars.
And by the way,
And how did we fund that? Hold up. How did we fund that? Harry,
Tax.
Harry just mentioned it a while ago about the bonds being floated. Now, interest.
We had to offer a lot of bonds, neighbor. Even I think Deloitte and Touche had something covered. I'm gonna have to find the article and send it.
All right, we defaulted on a lot of the bonds, and the government itself, from taxpayers and the budget, had to pay those bonds. Had to pay out those bonds money.
And I'm going to take you further. Harry has to protect himself, and Scratchy is out of the country, so he's probably a little safer. But I am willing to bear what it costs. One of the major benefactors of those bonds was the same opposition leader that is now talking. He and his deputy, Peter Murcott, Bunting, Golding. What's the name of the company again?
During Bunting and Golding, DBG.
They were the major beneficiary of those bonds. Right? So Mark Golding wants to do the same thing with Melissa by asking for these $50 million apiece for his MP. Now, if you do that, it is 1.4 billion Jamaican dollars between the 28 MPs of the PNP alone. Right? And why are you asking for that at this particular point in time? And another thing that Mark Golding has been asking about is road patching money. Now, we need every dollar that we can get. We need roads to be rebuilt. And you're asking for road patching money, which is not needed at this particular point in time. It shows a lack of understanding as to what is required to bring back the country to where it is. And not only that, but selfishness, thinking about what they need to put in their pocket, right? And to gain political capital as opposed to the greater good for the country.
let me move you on a little bit, Joshua. Today, government senator Apka Fitz-Henley said
subsequently confiscated pending investigation. Speaking on Newspin this afternoon, Joseph acknowledged the incident and strongly denied attempting.
Hold on. Sorry about that. Let's go to Mr. Fitz-Henley. Here is he.
Hey, TikTok. So you might recall just before the election in September, I had made a comment in the Parliament of Jamaica that every single word uttered by the Mark Golding-led PNP should be questioned. I had indicated that I was initially in the habit of using words like specious, mendacious, a stranger to the truth, that sort of euphemism, fallacious narrative to describe their false statements, but I felt it should be called out for what it is, barefaced lies. That was around the time when they were lying on the water quality, lying about the distribution of black tanks by the Jamaican state, and so forth. Subsequent to the election, that trend has continued, and I genuinely believe that when the annals of Jamaican history are written, the Mark Golding-led opposition PNP would be seen to have built a legacy of cultivating a number of lies for political gain. It has to be part of their legacy. And that is not to say that under various administrations from Mr. Seaga, Patterson, or Golding, that information has not been put into the public domain by politicians, which is not entirely so. You know, surely there was some misleading information, but generally when called out, the politicians would seek to bring to heel or clarify, or some element of contrition would be brought to bear. But this lot, this brand of Mark Golding led PNP, my God, they lie about matters of national importance and current affairs. So much so, it is part of their DNA. It is part of the fabric of their existence, how they conduct themselves.
Joshua, I'd like to hear all three of you on this. Beginning with you, Joshua. What a moment this is, Joshua, for this country to pause and ask itself, is Mr. Fitzhenley really speaking the truth?
Unfortunately, neighbor, he is not only speaking the truth, but he's more accurate than we would ever know. In fact,
who is Mr. Fitzhenley, by the way?
Oh, he's a government senator, and by the way, he's related to someone who was a former PNP MP. So if anyone should know, he should know. And I think
is he a parliamentary secretary? I understand.
I don't quite remember what his role is, but he's a government senator. That much I'm sure of, right? And as I said, the reason I pointed out that he is related to a former PNP MP, right? He's blood relative to a former PNP MP.
I am understanding that he's a state minister in the office of the Prime Minister.
Yes. In fact, I believe that he exercised great restraint in terms of its utterances, in terms of what the PNP has been doing. I have an article right now before me that can prove that this is something that the PNP has cultivated and they're paying persons to do what they're doing. I have an article that was written from 2019 which shows that they had planned to do this.
Yes. Before you to that though, Joshua, comment on the magnitude of this accusation. The allegation, I would put it no stronger, from Mr. Fitzhenley, a senator in the government, that the PNP are liars?
I'm going to move it beyond the allegation and say the factual information that he has presented. And I would take it even further. Why did it take so long? But better late than never.
Is it part of the war that the Prime Minister spoke of last week when he said there's going to be war? Is Mr. Fitzhenley now coming out as a general in this fight, Joshua?
He is. But I think it needs a little more of a Daryl Vaz kind of approach as opposed to a Fitzhenley kind of approach and a Julian Cuthbert kind of approach. Because whilst I admire the fact that we are now pushing back as a nation and as a country against these kind of lies, deliberate lies and misleading statement, I also believe that it needs not that kind of gentle, utterance in relation to what is taking place, but it also needs a forthright confrontation, as it were, regarding this. This is not something that is new, Joseph Goebbels, in the Ministry of Propaganda in Germany, practiced the very same thing, using the 9 principles of propaganda. When you study it carefully, you realize that the PNP is using every element of that. In fact, one of the 9 principles of propaganda says that you should never commend your counterpart. So when you see Mark Golding come out and not commending the government for benefiting from these loans, he's remaining true to one of the 9 principles of propaganda.
I don't want you to move on from this yet, Josh, because I think it is monumental, and I think we're going to have to talk a little bit more about it. Hold on there for me, sir. Scratchy?
Yes, neighbor.
Scratchy, a government senator is accusing the PNP of being liars?
Definitely, neighbor. If you look at this PNP, neighbor, they are definitely a bunch of liars, neighbor. A big bunch of liars. Just like you see a big bunch of Guinea, these guys are a big bunch of liars, neighbor. Big bunch too. Mark Golding is a twin Guinea.
But Scratchy, we need to say more on this, because what are the implications for this now? Because if there can be no trust between the opposition and the government, Scratchy. And by listening to the Prime Minister today, isn't it clear, Scratchy, to me, that the relationship between the opposition and the Prime Minister is not good, Scratchy. The Prime Minister don't want no threat. Him not taking no threat from him.
I mean, definitely, neighbor. The Prime Minister agree with a lot of things that is coming from the opposition side, neighbor. But as you can see, neighbor, he's even said that himself, neighbor, but it's the approach, neighbor. It is the approach of the opposition. Whenever he's making a request, he's not making a certain type of request in a way that you can say, yeah, you're talking to the Prime Minister. He's making the request as if he's the co-leader. And you're saying, yo, come on, do this right now. So I think the opposition needs to be careful in his approach, neighbor. Sometimes it's not what we say, but how we say it, neighbor. And the opposition neighbor is trying to prove, I don't know what he's trying to prove to his 27 millions, that he's some form of authority or whatever he's proving, neighbor. But it is not coming off attractive. And I'm telling you, it's going to backfire on him, neighbor. It's definitely going to backfire on him.
Yes. Harry?
Yes, neighbor.
Your take on this. This blatant, in your face, the guys are liars. This we never used to see this in the politics, Harry. What's happening here?
I think the time has come, neighbor, for it to be tackled head on, right? But I also want to point out, neighbor, regarding Mr. Henley. Let's not forget that he's also in a neighbor, the chairman of the JLP's communication task force, right? Uh-huh. Plus, he would have the credibility coming from with a journalist background, one who would have received the highest prize of journalism in the country. So the opposition now is being called out by somebody who has that credibility and that level of integrity.
But no, why do you think he's doing it?
Neighbor, I think because the lies and misinformation has been barefaced. It is getting out of hand, so much so that even in Parliament they're echoing the same thing, neighbor. So whatever we may see being echoed on social media and other media, it doesn't stay there. It has now found its way in the governing building of the country, neighbor, to be put forward as if they're truth. Because remember, I know, we may say, okay, on social media, we tolerate it there. But when you see it reaches the formal area and sector and body of the country, neighbor, that is where we said it is one that is strategically placed and targeting the social fabric of our own governance and our democracy. And it has to be dealt with, I think, a little bit more aggressive than it is even now. But we're seeing the starting of it, and that's good. Because even so, neighbor, all right, we see where the opposition is still there saying, just before the Prime Minister asked him, how barefaced can you be, neighbor, to come and tell the lie in front of the person, on the person, in front of the country?
That's when Miss Brownberg said, I'm telling it to your face.
Right.
Uh-huh. Let's play her. Hold on. Here she is.
About the next phase, and in particular moving from relief to recovery, I had a question in terms of, I think you had mentioned something about cash transfers earlier, though not specifically in here, but it ties in. So the question I wanted to ask is whether or not in the distribution of cash, allocation of cash transfers, whether gender sensitive targeting will be used, especially given the fact that we know that targeting households that are led female heads, that really brings more fairness. And I was wondering whether or not that was contemplated in what you were planning to do. The other question that I have was really around also integrating emergency cash relief into existing welfare programs. We haven't heard much spoken about that, but I believe that that is important, although issues of connectivity and network would hamper how successful that can be. But as we are moving to restore, I am asking, where are we with that, and hoping that we will do that. And then, Prime Minister, you speak in the reconstruction effort being deployed across infrastructure, housing, digitalization, logistics, agriculture, and energy, that thousands of jobs will be created. Again, Prime Minister, the question I'm asking, I'm looking at how Ministry of Labor and Social Security and some of those who have done the assessment, I'm looking at the cry on the ground about the partisan nature of how it has been done, how some communities have been totally left out, and I'm wondering what will be done differently to ensure that those thousands of jobs that are created for Jamaicans and not on a partisan basis.
So that's the question, Harry. Harry? He's gone.
Oh, I didn't realize I was muted. That question, neighbor, right? It ties in with the fact that her leader, Mark Golding, would have went further to say he doesn't know where the opposition stand when it comes on to the recovery and on the committee aspect of things, because it wasn't stated, right? Those two goes hand in hand, because that question cannot come without her leader saying it that way. Now, the problem with that, neighbor, is they are also a part of the process, and putting that question forward is insinuating to people that we're never a part of the process, that it's going to be a one-sided thing, right? And the government has not informed us, which is tying into what Mark Golding has said about he hasn't spoken in dialogue with the Prime Minister for 10 days. So all of these lies have built up to this specific moment in Parliament, neighbor. And them say you don't see smoke without fire. We saw it today as to how they coined and put these lies forward. But what has happened is that the country has now, based on Andrew's, the Prime Minister's response, has shown and shed light on the fact that they have been part of the process, right? They have always been a part of it. They have just not been truthful. They have not been forthcoming with the facts that there's nothing that would have been done, especially with the majority, well, one entire part, Westmoreland, has been won by the opposition. So you can't do anything down that side without them, neighbor. It would have been ludicrous, right, for the Prime Minister to have a plan put in place and deliberately eliminate the ruling MPs from that side. That is not in keeping with the strategy going forward. It's not in keeping with good governance, and we're now seeing good governance. So there's no way that question should have been put forward, especially by someone as this.
He raised a similar question last week, as the Prime Minister pointed out. Wasn't it the same question?
Right, it was. And she did also get her answer, neighbor, and it was also tackled then. But I think the opposition, what they're doing is trying to double down a little bit more, as if they didn't get the response, or the response that they want, neighbor. And that is not how it works. You're not the governing administration. You're not entitled to operate as if you rule. The government doesn't have to do what the opposition says. We can look into your suggestions.
Yes.
But if it's not in keeping with the structure that helped us to get the 6.7 billion US at hand.
Yes.
If it's not have a level of credibility, if it's not for the people and adding value for the people, and not just some or a portion of, it's not a plan that is going to be put in place for the people that Marky G is governing, which is 400 and odd thousand people. It has to benefit the entire Jamaica, especially the most vulnerable people as it stands. If their suggestion is not something in keeping with that, then I'm not entitled. As the administration, they don't have to even consider it. But they're operating as if they hold half of Jamaica. Last time I checked, 405,000 people is not half of Jamaica.
Well,
right? And on the voters list, it's not even half either. Because on that list is 1.9 million people, only just over 800,000 voted. So it simply means there's also another million and odd persons who are eligible to vote who didn't participate. Plus
Yes,
the rest of Jamaica that is not eligible. And you can't govern a country like that.
Yeah, quite an error. Let me go back to Joshua. Joshua?
Sir.
Yeah, Joshua, I want to pivot a little bit away from this to go back to APCA. And you know, Joshua, propaganda is a powerful thing, and there are some principles of propaganda, Joshua. You want to remind me of what those are? I think there are about 9. What are they?
All right. So the 9 principles of propaganda was right. Let us look at the 9 principles in brief. The first principle is to lie and lie big. That is what the first principle says.
You are to lie.
Yes, and lie big, not just lie, but lie big.
So when Mr. Fitzhenley studied lawyer, he studied law.
Right. But what the PNP, I've studied the principle itself, and I've realized that they are going through it point by point.
The
says
principles of propaganda.
Right, the 9 principles.
And the first one is to lie.
And not just lie. The first one is to lie big. So in other words, you tell and the exposition on it says big lies is worth that anyone would lie about that.
Wow.
So like something like what Dwayne Vaz would have come out and said.
Well, it's not just Dwayne Vaz. All of the PNP, well, most of them, not all.
Let's listen to Mr. Vaz. Go ahead. Play Mr. Vaz.
The assistance you have gotten from the government was the $3 million that was met. The only assistance you have gotten from the government was the $3 million that was mentioned by Dr. Campbell earlier. Every other assistance with regards to food, packages, and water have come from private donors. We have to.
My God. So that is not true.
No, sir. In fact, I think what would be instructive is for you to play an excerpt of when you had that interview with Colonel Charles Jr., which countered that narrative.
I could find that, you know.
Yes, because it countered that narrative very well, right?
Hold on there, sir. Let's
Yes,
listen
sir.
to Mr.
TikTok.
Listen to Mr.
You
Fitzgerald.
seem to have built a legacy of cultivating a number of lies for political gain. It has to be part of their legacy. And that is not to say that under various administrations from Mr. Siaga, Patterson, or Holding, that information has not been put into the public domain by politicians, which is not entirely so. You know, surely there was some misleading information, but generally when called out, the politicians would seek to bring to heel or clarify, or some element of contrition would be brought to bear. But this lot, this brand of Mark Golding-led PNP, my God, they lie about matters of national importance and current affairs. So much so, it is part of their DNA. It is part of the fabric of their existence. So they.
My God, Joshua. So you are saying that the principles of propaganda is at work here?
Yes, sir. In fact, it is being taken directly from the Socialist Manifesto, which Joseph Goebbels created in the
Let
20s.
Hold on. Let me ask you a question. Do you think that Mr. Vaz deliberately lied?
All right. To answer you, sir, if I may be able to read something very quickly. That Crystal Tomlinson, the former PNP YO herself, had stated. Let me just quickly find it. And it is very eye-opening. So here it is. This is from the Observer of the 16th of April 2019. Caption: Militant PNP YO getting quiet support from some elders. That is the caption.
In a paper?
The Daily Observer
of
the 16th of April 2019. This article was written. Right? And the caption is Militant PNP YO or PNP Youth Organization getting quiet support from some of its elders. Right? Now, I have cut out an excerpt and it says the youth arm further recommended an overhaul of the PNP's communication machinery, which political analysts say was found wanting in the lead up to the 2016 general election. So you notice when they started? And as recent as the Portland Eastern by-election, right? Communications, PR, machinery must be financed. And the PNP YO is suggesting a structural reform, which means hiring adequate staff and making some positions redundant.
That
and
was
it says we need a communications director with a clear voice. Remember, I spoke last week about them having groups and disseminating information down the line. Communications director with a clear voice, a clear message, and full access to all 63 constituencies and their communication processes so that there can be cohesion. Or we can replace the word cohesion with collusion. So we're telling the lie together as one and communicating reaching the grassroots from the party's leadership. So you notice where it's coming from? They are saying, listen me, send down the message, the lies from the party's leadership through to our minions and make them pass it on to the rest. Right? This is something that is strategized and is at work from the very highest point in the PNP.
Hold on. Let me play Vaz again. This is fascinating stuff. We're trying to dissect this. Let me play Vaz again, and then I'm gonna play the minister. Go ahead with Mr.
The only assistance you have gotten from the government was the $3 million that was mentioned by Dr. Campbell earlier. Every other assistance with regards to food, packages, and water have come from private donors.
Okay, so that is clear. Every other assistance that we have gotten have come from private donors. Now, here is the minister responding to that.
Motivated by parties work.
Jamaica has seen. I see him come on the screen now. Before he jumps back in, let me say this. A lot of people asking about farm work. And social work has been employed. Let me say this. We are facing a stimulate economic growth, economic activity. But then there are people who are asking, did you use the cat bond money to move us back to where we were in the last quarter? I understand that, Minister, but you are in an emotional society, and especially when propaganda and misinformation are at their very at the top today. Today, Minister, the Prime Minister was in Westmoreland.
Well, that's not it. That's
the
not
Minister of Labour with responsibility for the packages when they came off in the first phase. I sent 900 packages to the members of Parliament in the West, Hanover, and the one in St. Elizabeth that is affiliated with the PNP.
You didn't send it to Mr. Vaz in Central Westmoreland?
Yes, I did.
No, but Mr. Vaz says he has got.
Listen to me. Just listen to me first, and then you'll hear the full story. 900 packages went to the 3 MPs in Westmoreland, 1 in Hanover, 2 in Hanover, and 1 in St. Elizabeth, just for them to split up. All of them got 150 each before anybody in Trelawney got. Before anybody else got. In addition to that, I made sure to do airlift in Darlington, which is in Dayton Campbell Seat, of 1,000 packages.
Wow.
And each of those packages can serve a family of 3 for 1 week. And I must tell you, I want to acknowledge Mr. Campbell. He was very grateful. He was organized, and his counselor, can't remember his name, was a gracious man. And if I could help them again, I would help them again. Mr. Vaz got a similar set, I think either 900 or 1,000 massive packages. Mr. Vaz was airlifted into his seat at Reno Sports Complex. It didn't go as organized. For whatever reason, that was not well organized. And Mr. Vaz had a lot of accusations that his opponent was there and other people. I didn't call his opponent. Okay, but people were there and it didn't work out as organized. But the reality is the government with our partners put 1,000 packages into one seat and 900 into another seat in Westmoreland. And there are several other airlifts that took place in Westmoreland and several other packages that went to Westmoreland. Westmoreland got 40% of all packages coming out of the Ministry of Labour went to Westmoreland and split up between the 3 MPs there, who happened to be MPs from the opposition. And I never saw color with them. I had...
Yeah, well, you hear that. That's that. So Joshua?
Yes, sir.
There you go, sir. I've played for you the minister's response, and I've played for you Mr. Vaz. Mr. Vaz said nothing came there. The minister says 40% of all the packages went to Westmoreland. So why would Mr. Vaz have done that?
All right, so let me make the connection, sir. Thanks for asking again. The 9 principles of propaganda, as I'm going to reiterate. Principle number 1 is to lie big. And it says big lies work better than small lies because the masses won't believe that anyone would lie about that. So it shows you the disrespect that they have for the intelligence of the Jamaican people. But listen to lie number 2. Listen to principle number 2. It says focus. It says focus. Don't make it complicated. Ignore history. Keep it simple for simple minds. You notice what they're calling the Jamaican people? They're saying that their minds is so simple that they will believe.
Yes.
Right? Number 3.
Hold on, sir.
Number 3. Repeat.
Is the nine principles of propaganda.
Yes. So principle number 3 is to repeat it, and that is what Angela Brownberg is doing now.
Hold on. We can't do that for free. We can't do this for free, man. Moderator, the class can't be for so free today. Hold on. Let me talk to the moderator a little bit. Mr. Joshua, come back to the listeners. This is fascinating stuff happening on Politics Plus at 20 minutes to 10 o'clock. I tell you. 19 to 10. We're here with you until 10 o'clock. Well, my understanding is that we're quite fine until 10 o'clock. So I'm to go along and to galang till 10. They say we have to galang till 10, Joshua. We don't have no choice.
No problem, sir. No problem. This is for Jamaica, right?
Yes. All right. So let us put in context, Joshua. A government senator today came out to say that the PNP are liars, that they are a bunch of liars. And I find that to be quite a statement to make from a government senator. It's not something that we should take and brush aside lightly. Mr. Fitzhenley Apka a parliamentary secretary, or he's a state minister in the office of the prime minister. This is a government senator, and he's saying that the PNPs are liars. Right? Liars. The prime minister in Westmoreland has declared war. War. He's not afraid of nobody. You know, he has declared war on misinformation. And here we have here is the prime minister speaking in Westmoreland last week.
And it is one thing that you will see about me. Me not afraid of nobody. All who want to make me one. Me will go with you toe to toe. Every nonsense you talk, I will respond to it. And as you would have seen with the government, man come out with foolishness, we respond, not go so. Yeah. So make them, and as many means as they can make, I can make it too. So it's going to be war. Because we cannot allow the people who peddle nonsense, the people who tell lies, we cannot allow them to win. So we
there you have it. And then senior journalist Cliff Hughes, he is at Nationwide. He says that that the lies have gotten into the parliament, and that there is possible that people are getting paid to tell lies. It's a very serious matter. We're trying to see if we can explore. Go ahead. Yes.
Remember, I just read the article, an excerpt from the article, written by the president, the former president of the PNP Youth Organization.
May I just play one more clip, Joshua?
Prime Minister Andrew Holness last night at Gordon House in the Parliament, on his feet, responding. And you know, I tell you, I am very concerned about a disease that is taking root in our politics. It's a disease that is being normalized in certain democracies. Trump disease, the lying, the normalization of lying. And I've spoken about it here. And in that, what you saw in the parliament yesterday is an evolution. So those kinds of lies that are peddled, especially on social media, we see the opposition now legitimizing it in the parliament. And it is something that poses an insidious threat to our democracy, where we lie. And if you don't tell a blatant one, you tell a half-truth, and you push it out there, and you pay people to repeat it. And if they repeat it often enough, enough people will begin to believe it. It is an insidious and dangerous threat.
An insidious and a dangerous threat. There you have it, Joshua.
Neighbor, I know we take it. You have called for us to take it seriously, but I don't think the nation on a whole, the Prime Minister is beginning to take it seriously, but I don't think the nation has taken it as seriously as they should. History is replete, and I've said this before, with instances of propaganda not only destabilizing countries, but causing wars between countries and also causing internal revolution, and not only that, but also coups. We have Alberto Mussolini of Italy, we have the French Revolution, that was caused as a result of lies. We have Hitler overthrowing the duly elected government as a result of propaganda and war. And part of how Fidel Castro rose to power, it's not as blatant as with Fidel Castro, was similar, right? Our nearest neighbor, which is Cuba, actually developed one of their own. And we know that the PNP is very close to them. In fact, they still have persons who go to Cuba from time to time. One of their very senior statesman. In fact, he's probably he's one out of two states that is left in the PNP that still goes to Cuba, right? Now, I want us to think carefully, because this is intended. We ask ourselves if this can be true. It is true in every sense of the word. It is more true than the very skin on your flesh. I want to repeat that.
That's what we are experiencing here.
Right.
Based on Mr. Fitzhenley, Mr. Cliff Hughes, the minister, that what we are experiencing here is an insidious threat, and that the opposition has taken lies into the parliament, sir.
It is not only insidious, but it's an existential threat, which means that it is very present, it is real, and cannot be ignored. Let me just fly through this quickly, sir, because I want people to understand the elements. It says, number 3, repeat. People cannot tell the difference between facts and familiarity. This is the third element of the principles, you know.
Yes. So the first is to lie. The second is to focus on the lie. Repeat it.
Right. And the third one is repeat. People cannot tell the difference between facts and familiarity. If they hear the same words repeated enough, they become true in their minds. So why you think that they have been classifying the Prime Minister as being dishonest and illicit enrichment, and now they begin to talk about partisanship and all of those things, not getting any money and not being helped, because it is being repeated over and over, and after a while people believe it. People like Mark Myrie, Buju Banton has now joined the bandwagon and gone overseas to do the same thing. The fourth one, blame. Never credit the other side. Always blame, right? Debase, defame, and dehumanize. So you see the principle coming. Then the fifth one, provoke outrage. Fear and resentment are more powerful than reason, logics, or fact. In other words, you're provoking people within the nation to outrage. That's what they're doing, hoping to provoke people that they rise up against the government. Number 6, crisis. Issues must be life or death, good versus evil, love versus hate, us versus them. Right? Then it says urgency defeats objection. So, in other words, the government, I care about for them people alone, but not our people. I am responsible for 400,000. I'm responsible for them. So it's us versus them. Number 7, emotion. A person might question facts, but they will never question their own feelings. And it says go emotional. So when you hear PNP talking about people are suffering, them not have nowhere to live, baby mother outside and all of those things, it's really to stir up their emotion. And here it is, principle number 7 says, so go emotional. Number 8, ponder. Ignore reasonable arguments. So no matter how reasonable the arguments are, no matter how the Prime Minister come and explain it, ignore it. Pretend like him never say anything. Right? Even when he gives you a plausible explanation and it can be proven, bypass it and keep on repeating the lie. Right? They will never question their own feelings. Go emotional. Ponder, ignore reasonable arguments. Demonize all who disagree as having bad intention. We see recently PNPs are cursing out PNP who try to disagree with them. So this is number 8. Number 9, no limits. That's the last one, no limits. Morality is for losers. That's principle number 9. Right? The victor's morality will not be questioned. No limits. So in other words, the intention is to win. Right? And when you are at the top now, people will say, boy, yes, Mark G, a Prime Minister. And they will not question you know, the method that you use to get there. All they know is that you finally beat up the labor right them and become prime minister. We see it. But and landing now, neighbor, I want to say something quickly. 55, normally new administrations are judged by the first 100 days, how they perform.
Yes.
55 years, which is 60% of the tenureship of the new administration, we got a hurricane. 75 days into the new administration, PNP already planned 2 demonstrations, one for December and one for July.
What you saying to me?
So this is not about performance, you know. This is playing true to their plans, which is to destabilize and overthrow the government so that they can. I have a tape right now. I can send it to you, sir, where they are saying that they don't recognize the prime minister as the prime minister and he will have to step down. And they're
who is saying that? Who is saying that?
A PNP activist known as Diane.
Oh, well, what are you saying to me? Hold on there. Listen to this.
We will need voices other than the government to explain some of the decisions that we will have to make. Because regardless of what we do and how we feel that we're making the right decision, Jamaica is a democracy. And ultimately, you want the people to understand what you're doing, appreciate it, and give their support. So we are not going to move ahead and leave the people. We will need voices other than the government to explain some of the decisions that we will have to make.
Clearly, Joshua, the Prime Minister is saying that the government alone can't. That's why someone like you, your voice becomes important, eh?
Yes, sir. And I've made a commitment to myself and to the country. Whether it is accepted or not, I owe it to myself and to the country that if I'm the last man standing, I will continue to fight until there's no breath left in my body, whether it goes naturally or somebody takes me out.
Why? Why are you doing that?
I'm a patriot first and foremost. I love Jamaica and I'm concerned about Mark Golding's attitude. I have been studying Mark Golding, you know, and when you study how narcissism works, Mark Golding checked almost every single box of narcissism. When you check how dictators operate and fascist leaders, he ticked every box. When you check how they operate, they are utilizing all the 9 principles of propaganda. You notice every single thing that the government tries to do, Mark Golding come out in the true sense of the word, being an opposition to it and an obstacle to it, right? Even when it's something, when Mark Golding is saying it's nothing to rejoice about, it is something to rejoice about. The fact that international entities can look at you and without you even approaching them, approach you and say, hey, we have this much confidence in
something to celebrate.
It is something to celebrate, right?
Yes.
And even if we do it in a tempered way, it is still something to celebrate. So why are you pushing back against it? Right?
With some pride.
We should have great pride within ourselves, because a few years ago in Washington, if you read the Economist magazine, which is one of them, the World Bank's page, if you go there, right, and several other international recognized medias, you will see that one of the laughters that they used to have, has Jamaica failed yet? That was one of the questions that they continually have in Washington.
Yes.
Right? Because our debt was 147% and at its highest point 156%. Now,
yes,
nobody wanted to lend us money. No, the fact that
you said earlier, Joshua, we're running out of time, that the FinSAC debt, Scratchy?
Yes, neighbor.
Remind us that the FinSAC debt was 40% of our GDP. 40%, yes. You said?
40%.
Exactly, 40%. Yes, neighbor.
Wow, my goodness, and we never celebrated then. And but hold on there a little bit, Joshua. Scratchy, Jamaica never went looking for a hurricane. You know, a hurricane hit us, and as a response, and as a responsible response from a government that is responsible, Scratchy, it is to get the people back up quickly. Is not so?
I mean, definitely, neighbor. Our greatest asset, neighbor, now is our people, neighbor. So we
Yeah.
cannot
And
move
is it not true, Scratchy, that 30 odd days after our worst catastrophe, with 40% of our economy down, that the government has been able to secure funding to build us back, has got to be a good thing.
A wonderful thing, neighbor. Wonderful thing, neighbor. It is one thing to be down, neighbor, and don't
Yes.
know how to get up back. But it's the next thing when you're down and you know exactly how you can get up back, neighbor.
Yeah. And
That is the situation that
statesmanship,
you're in.
does statesmanship not demand that opposition at this time, without having to throw their support behind the government, to go into parliament and acknowledge that this is something that the country could benefit from? And of course, Scratchy, hold the government accountable. Ask the government to explain the terms, the conditions, and how it is going to be spent. That's fine. That's the opposition's role. But to have suggested, Scratchy, that this is not a moment of celebration, I think it's to betray the country.
Again, neighbor, I tell you, the opposition leader, neighbor, he has no approach, neighbor, he has no style, no leadership qualities, neighbor. I mean, I being an opposition leader, neighbor, I would definitely endorse something like this to the worst in the parliament, the most legal part of our system, neighbor, highest court of our land. And maybe, neighbor, at a side table, at a sidebar now, I would have a side talk with the PM and say, yo, Mr. PM, what we're going to do, you get me? For the sake of that, these are how you do, this is how government operates in a neighbor. You have to always make sure that for the sake of unity, and for the sake of togetherness, you always create that front as if yes, there's some form of unity there. So I would agree with it. And then maybe in a side talk, I could have a more off camera, off official talk with the Prime Minister and get a full understanding of what is going on. But I would definitely agree with it, neighbor. As I said, neighbor, the opposition has nothing to gain in this. They're going to lose, neighbor. They're going to fall on their own sword. At the end of this, neighbor, the Jamaican people, neighbor, will definitely see the type of opposition that we have, especially the type of leader, neighbor, and the leadership qualities that he bring. And I'm telling you, neighbor, I'm giving him a couple more months. After persons kind of see how the perception change towards the government and the persons are leaning towards the government, I think his own party, neighbor, are the one who are going to ask him, neighbor, to tender his resignation.
You are saying you are thinking that the opposition leader is going to resign, sir?
Yes, neighbor, I expect the one party to ask him to tender his resignation, neighbor. He's not going to gain any form of traction out of this, neighbor. And it's because of his leadership style and leadership qualities that won't let him gain any traction. And for that, neighbor, they would definitely blame him for this one, neighbor.
My God, boy, I tell you something. We're living in interesting time. Harry.
Yes, neighbor.
The dissertation done by our friend Joshua on the principles of propaganda. Are we stretching it a bit too far, Harry, or do you see this at work in our country?
Neighbor, I think for one, Joshua outlined it very well, right? And I personally have said it, and I've given the opposition credit for this over and over. They are very good at politicking. They're exceptional when it comes down to their election machinery. And what Joshua outlined are the tenets of what they abide by, neighbor. So it's not surprising that we're seeing everything coming out. I mean, looking from the outside, we may have missed it, but Joshua has now shone light on it for our viewers and everybody else to see how layered it is. And we can go back, even right after the election coming up to now, we would have seen each layer, how they apply it, neighbor. And no, I think it's unquestionable as to what they're doing, right? It's not something they can denounce anymore. They can't refute it. I do see a member.
Is it that the society now have a Joshua, a Scratchy, a Harry able to access media and to highlight these things vis-a-vis years ago when we never had this? Is that the challenge here that the opposition is facing, that people are more informed, people have advanced themselves educationally and are seen through this? The philosophy, the psychology is now available to people. Is that part of the challenge?
It is, neighbor, and I think what they have now faced are the patriotic persons who want the best for Jamaica. They are now having to face people like myself and Joshua and Scratchy on the very media that they wanted to utilize for their own ill-gotten gains. So just like they were planning to use it for negativity, they're now facing the actual reality of that disruption, because social media is a disruptor in a neighbor, right? But it's how you use it, and what they wanted to use it for, it is now their Achilles heel, and they have to face it, because now platforms like this and others, neighbor, are edifying and educating people as to things they may not have had access to, right? And bringing it to their attention for them to know, feed that hunger for knowledge. And we're here to give it. We're here to share our perspective and to be challenged on our perspective too, because we want to hear.
Isn't this a losing strategy though, Harry? Because isn't this likely to isolate many Jamaicans and bring you into a group of people that are merely your supporters, as I think happened in the last election? Isn't this a losing strategy? Wouldn't a better strategy be to seek to bring in the uncommitted persons who are non-partisan? Is this not a losing strategy? I'm being told that my time is up. Go ahead.
Well, for us, neighbor, it may seem that way, but understand this: the opposition leader and his people aren't looking to appeal to everybody. They're looking to appeal to a portion of a subset that they can manipulate and control, neighbor, and that is just the fact. That is just the truth. It's a reality as to what they're doing. Hence why they're so focused on that 400 and odd thousand people, that if they believe that if they hold that set of people, neighbor, and they don't lose them, they stand a greater chance coming 2030. But they have another guest coming, because there's another million people that may arise. And even if the uncommitted has now seen the light, has understand what is happening, and choose Jamaica again, then we know what will happen coming that time. But for them, neighbor, they don't see it as a losing strategy just yet. A leopard doesn't change its stripe, or its spots rather. So let's see, let's go ahead and prove them wrong again, maybe for a fourth term, right? And this isn't to be aligned.
What you say about fourth term, there, brother? What you say about fourth term?
Yeah. Neighbor, if you don't mind, I've said it and I'm sticking to it.
That's what I heard the government MPs shouting in Parliament today.
But the truth is, in a neighbor, if this strategy that they have, and I know it won't bring their leadership to the standard that it has been put to know, then they shouldn't be returned, neighbor, because we've now known what good leadership is, and we can't turn back.
I'm told my time is up. Hold on there for me. Let me see if I can negotiate a little more time for you, please. I am on strict orders to cut. My understanding is that Mr. Crawford, Damien, was on the program earlier. Mr. Crawford, is this what the PNP has come to, sir? That it has become a party of liars? This is what Mr. Abkapitsenli said. Is that true?
Neighbor, I'm happy he made it on. We're still asking for an update on the plan or the draft. I think that would do our people great justice to have an idea as to what the alternatives are.
Yes, Mr. Crawford, you did promise. Yes, yes, Joshua.
In addition to what Harry just requested from Mr. Crawford, I wish she's here because I want to say this right in his presence, and he cannot deny that it's true. One night when Munchi used. Yeah. And I spoke to him then, and I spoke to him about my concern about how it's gonna distort history, and that the generation to come will not know our history carefully as they should, and that he should speak to his people, the bloggers who are there. And he said to me he would do the same thing too. But it is not rumor. And I dare Mr. Crawford to come up and deny it.
Well, listeners, we'll be back tomorrow morning at 9 o'clock. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. Here we. By the way, Joshua, please, sir, see if you can help us to do a little bit more of this. You hear, please.
No problem, sir. No problem. As I'm able to, you have my undivided attention as often as I'm able to.
It's about linking, you know, Joshua. You know?
Awesome.
It's about linking things. And I think we have done a great job in linking it tonight. We're happy to hear from the PNP. I wonder if they would want to respond.
Sir, I would invite you and all our listeners, including the learned, because there's no such word as a learned. The learned and the erudite gentlemen here, to do a research on destabilizing strategies by communist parties. That's one, and destabilizing tactics by political parties against their opponents, and read it carefully, and you'll see the similarities between what is being practiced. So the 9 principles of propaganda plus the destabilizing strategies and tactics by these entities. And one of the things that is mentioned there is how you control the media, and make sure that you have key personnels in key areas. And one of the things that they also mention is that you must make sure that you have intel inside at all times, so that you can beat your opponent with the information.